Okay, we're recording. Okay, welcome everyone to this cert-manager development meeting, 7th of April 2021. The agenda today is a work in progress. I can see Jake filling it in, but we shall be talking about the progress with the 1.3 cert-manager release. We may have a conversation about the idea of accepting certain external issuers into the cert-manager organization and conformance tests and requirements for that. And one or two other items which are on the agenda linked to the calendar invite for this meeting. So first of all, do we need to do any introductions? I'll quickly say that Jake, Urbe, Ashley, Mail, and I are all on the cert-manager team from JetStack. Sitram, is this your first time joining this meeting?
Yeah, the specific meeting, yes. Hello, everyone. Sitaram from JetStack as well.
Welcome, Sitram.
And yeah, welcome. Eddie, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Eddie Diong, but you can call me Eddie. I'm I'm a student, but I'm also an infrastructure engineer. Yeah, with some years of experience. I'm interested in open source and in everything infrastructure, which is actually how I found out about cert-manager itself. Yeah. And
you're here because you're submitting a project proposal for the Google Summer of Code.
Yes. Yeah, I'm submitting a project. So my project is basically to enable users install cert-manager using kubectl. So instead of using the Helm chart or having to write your own configuration manifest, just actually the installation itself is pretty get the cert-manager YAML from the release and add your own configuration. So basically, it's just to make it easier for kubectl users like myself. I think I stopped using a bit of non-tech stuff, but I stopped using Helm after version 2. Maybe they removed till I don't really know. I've not totally looked at Helm 3 yet. So yes.
All right. Well, thanks. I owe you a review of your proposal, which I'll do this afternoon. And perhaps next development meeting, we can have a section in the agenda for talking about yours and Arsh's Google Summer of Code proposals. Josh, 30 seconds about you, please. If you can hear us.
Oh,
he's still on the call.
Yeah, I think he's still.
Well, Josh joined our stand-up this morning, and he's been contributing some bug fixes and documentation fixes to cert-manager, but in particular, he's looking to install for us a decent spell-checking CI system, which will check over our API docs and code documentation for spelling mistakes. So we'll have a moment to talk about that later in the meeting. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the 1.3 release progress. I shall ask Urbe to say one or two things about that.
So the 1.3 release will come out tomorrow. We have had 2 alphas and the beta so far. I guess the idea of the alphas and betas is that users do some testing before. I am not sure if anyone has done, I know there's one person who checked that the multiple certificate requests issue was fixed for them. I'm not sure if we have had any other feedback, but yeah, we're expecting the new release coming out.
James Munley usually installs the alphas, and so does Marcher, but maybe we should check with them when they have had a chance to do that after this meeting. I said I was going to test, try and run the end-to-end tests against Kubernetes 1.21, but I haven't yet done that. I didn't know whether it's possible to easily get a kind cluster with 1.21 without having to compile your own Kubernetes nodes. So I'll maybe look into that. And what else? What's a quick summary of what we've managed to include in the 1.3 release?
Yeah, I can step in because it's a lot of Josh's features, so he's not here. So this release is mainly laying the groundwork for adopting the upstream Kubernetes certificate request object. So right now in the cluster lifecycle, there's a feature that's used to sign node certificates, which is the upstream Kubernetes certificate request object, and we'd like cert-manager to be able to sign these going forward, because a lot of projects might want to adopt the upstream API type rather than have to install cert-manager's CRDs and webhook. So just the very first thing that we need in order to do this is have a approved condition on cert-manager certificates. So that's gone into this release. And aside from that, there's a couple of bug fixes that improve namespaces support for Vault Enterprise, which is important for enterprise customers. And then a lot of small user-facing bug fixes, like ERA's multiple certificate requests issue. There was a bunch of Helm chart fixes that are contributed by the community. And I can't think of anything else, but I'm sure there are more bugs.
Thanks, Jake. Right. James, welcome. Thanks for joining.
I'm staying muted until I get these going because I cause loads of echo apparently.
Yes. Okay. Well, we've pulled it out of the bag, and maybe we'll release 1.3 on time tomorrow. Mail, you put your hand up.
I think Josh raised his hand.
Hi.
Sorry, Josh.
Sorry about that. The timing kind of works. So I'm Josh. Yes, I think the introduction that was given about me is pretty good. I'm here specifically today to help talk about the spell checker. But yeah, we use cert-manager. I mean, I offer fixes to random projects that I don't use, but this is actually one that I use and care about, which is also why I'm not just giving those fixes, but actually contributing on the rest of the org. But yeah, that's enough for now.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah. Yeah. So we're on track to release cert-manager 1.3 tomorrow morning at 9:30 EST. Is the current plan. Okay. Next thing on the agenda, the question is a question which was raised in the last development meeting by some programmers from Amazon AWS, was what is the process and what are the requirements for including an external issuer in the cert-manager organization on GitHub. They have an AWS CA external issuer, which they'd like to donate. We talked about a number of we talked about it with them last time, and we said to them last time that we were going to consider it and also document what we would like them to do, the criteria we would like them to meet before we accept the project. And I think I'll hand over to Mail, who's been writing up an issue with some prototype documentation around this.
Hi. Yes, so I opened this yesterday and I didn't do much since then, but the gist is that this morning we discussed this idea of like, do we let AWS, so the name of the project is AWS PCA Issuer. So do we move this project to the cert-manager org before the conformance test? So we don't have any conformance like test suite or anything that anyone can try like integrate to their own external issuer today. So the first thing I wanted to bring up is that this morning we decided that no, we're not going to have. We want this conformance test to be passing before the project gets donated. And as part, what we said this morning was that as part of this, so the issue that I wrote is basically it gives a direction where the people of AWS should look at in order to have the conformance test pass. So there is like an example. Okay, am I making sense?
Yeah. So you've written in that issue quite a lot of detail about how they might make use of the existing conformance tests in cert-manager, as currently exemplified by the sample external issuer, for which we've written some end-to-end tests, which actually run the conformance tests. Oh, sorry. Is that true? Yes, I think it is true. What we can propose to them that they at least copy those tests into their code base. If not, ask them to refactor those tests so that they can be run, taken as a library from the cert-manager code base and run against their issuer somehow. The other thing we can do is document those requirements that we have automated in those tests.
So
yeah.
Sorry.
James, go ahead.
Sorry, I have still got a lag, so I'm trying to I should raise my hand actually. I can use the raise hand feature. Yeah, so as you noted, there is obviously the conformance test suite, and that the intention there is that it can be generic between any kind of issuer and should be able to be imported in some way. I think it's great to see people wanting to contribute these things to our project. I think we also need to work out what that means to be part of the project. And also, and I think it's valid to say it's just like a space to allow more open collaboration and also like a single instance of that type of project instead of there being like 3 different Amazon CA issuers. I think that's, it helps to kind of say like this one is backed. I think having them pass conformance makes sense to begin with as well. But I also think we should work with them to help them pass conformance. So I think it's a tricky middle ground whereby I want to make sure that you kind of want to make sure that they have the support they need to actually do that too. And it may be that they pass today, but in a week's time they fail. So, if they're 2 tests short of all passing now, then that may actually indicate a good time to actually accept them in anyway. And I guess then I don't know if there's anything we need to do in terms of the CNCF side and talking there to see if there is anything with IP being handed over, but it's probably worth checking in with the CNCF to make sure that license-wise that we aren't doing anything funky. They might need to take a look over the licenses used in that project and make sure that everything's signed off okay.
So the team that spoke to us last meeting said that they were already in contact with the CNCF, so they should be able to do that. One final thing that we also talked about this morning was testing infrastructure, because we can't afford Amazon PCA, but so they would have to ensure that they donated some resources to keep the tests running as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from my understanding of how we would ask people to run the conformance, they would have to come up with their own infrastructure, and we wouldn't have to deal with this. Like until I'm not sure we have ever discussed this, but that's how I understood it. So AWS would somehow copy the example that is outlined in this issue, and then they would somehow pay for a private CA and pay for, I don't know, some CI somewhere.
So that's.
Or
definitely.
do we want it to be inside the cert-manager testing thing?
I do think, I hope no one else has spoken yet. Well, looks like I'm okay. I've got, like, I see people move and then I hear them, so sorry. I do think that's a really tricky one, actually, testing. In an ideal, testing and funding for testing is hard. If you look at the Kubernetes SIG side of things, anything under Kubernetes SIGs goes on the big Kubernetes bill. That works because Google have just put up money to cover that. Ultimately, I don't think any of the others contribute to it. When it comes to access to like AWS specific services, though, AWS have, I think, so basically there's a load of Amazon accounts, and they use Boscos to hand out effectively clean Amazon accounts to test jobs that require them. So that may be a middle ground there, where we're not asking them to stand up test infrastructure to run, the test suites, the Kubernetes cluster that actually deploys this. Maybe that is something that goes on like the cert-manager project tab. But in terms of any cloud provider specific resources, maybe that has to come from somewhere.
It ties in as well with what Arsh is working on in the Google Summer of Code. He's planning to do end-to-end tests on multiple cloud infrastructure, and perhaps his Terraform plans or configuration might be used with one, like James, what you said is that they would provide us with an account with which we could run our Terraform setup scripts to create the infrastructure that would allow us to run cert-manager tests and the tests for their sample, for their external issue somehow.
Yeah, I think the question, there is like around which bits we're testing. And like with testing in cloud providers, I know one of the areas that we've often wanted to be able to do that is for Acme's HTTP01 with like the load balancers. In terms of like where you, as it stands today, cert-manager's deployment isn't tested on any cloud providers. It's tested in Kind, which happens to run on Google Cloud VMs, but ultimately it's not in a cloud provider. And I think that still provides for the project itself like a decent level of confidence. It's the majority of Kubernetes testing is actually done in Kind nowadays. They do have scale testing on particular cloud providers, but there it's not really about testing the matrix. It's more about providing a steady baseline so that when you compare two sets of test results, it's not because Amazon had faster CPUs or something. But yeah, I think having a pool of Amazon accounts could definitely help for if you do want to do anything like that, like just generic testing, and also for getting access to like those private CA, like the Amazon CA or whatever it's called, And then obviously the billing for that can be managed. I think the only thing we'll need to do is run Boscos, have all those accounts registered, run the cleanup thingamabob as well. That goes and cleans out the Amazon accounts. But yeah, and that'd be a good conversation to have with these Amazon groups.
What is Boscos for the record? We've got a link to it, so we can put it in the minutes.
Yeah, I'll go and dig it out. Just as a brief. Oh yeah, just searching for Boscos comes up with burgers for me at the minute on Google. I'll dig it out in a second. It's an extra component in Prowl. It's actually very general purpose. You can acquire, there we go. You can acquire a lease on a resource of some description. And that's the very general purpose bit. In like test infra, there's a whole load of Amazon accounts there. Effectively, your test job can say, I want an Amazon account. And then out of that pool of Amazon accounts, it will, like the ready pool or the clean pool, I think they call it, you will be allocated one, and now you hold that lease. And say there's only 10, if there's a 11th job that starts up, it will just the job will keep waiting for one to be free. Now, once the job is complete, there is a cleaner that effectively, I think they call it a janitor or something. Now that is AWS specific, or that particular resource type specific. Resource type being the Boscos resource type, not Kubernetes related. And it will go through and basically access that Amazon account once the job is finished, tear down as many things as it knows how to do. There have been times in the past where things were missed, and then it releases that back into the pool to be made available to the next test job that needs it.
That's cool. Okay, thanks.
With regards to the testing proposal, yeah, it was to do cloud testing based on like cloud provider managed Kubernetes and like the HTTP one, just like smoke test, I guess, because we could just add testing for new products, like when AWS did Fargate and Google have done whatever the newest managed Kubernetes is called. I've forgotten now.
Autopilot.
Yeah, autopilot. But we could just instantly start testing them as soon as they appear, expecting them to fail. But it would just help us. That's the idea.
If we were to require, so does it mean that basically if we were to require for conformance test to pass in order to accept the project, we by that mean that there needs to be a continuous integration associated with the project that continuously runs the conformance test rather than that they have passed at some point in the past?
Oh,
I guess.
yeah.
Is that? I mean, I guess that makes sense.
It would be nice to have like this requirement would be nice, like once every day. Have a CI run like we do.
With a badge that they could put on README.
I think that's also why I'd like to see us actually run those periodic jobs ourselves, and have those as part of like test grid dashboards and things. So like Prowl kicking these things off, because it means that we can manage and run them. If they're becoming part of the cert-manager org, that is, because right now today they could be going and running these jobs, passing conformance tests, and we say this is conformant. If you look, yeah, I'll stop talking. I think it's. I obviously want all these conformance tests to be passing. That's the whole point. We've got them, but I do think as well it's like a bit of a tough one to ask them up front. Like everything has to pass, otherwise we're not going to accept you, because that is a moving target too. And it's, I guess, if it's a show of if you're willing to put in the effort now, then we've got more confidence in this project actually continue to be maintained, because we're putting some kind of a badge of approval. Or are we better to say, well, we'd accept it in, and we clearly mark it as not passing conformance? Maybe that's something that we surface through our own like website and things, that here's the list of things we have and it's not conformant, and that means it's not really ready. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got the notes in the minutes, and we should add Mail. You'll add these thoughts to the ticket, and
yes, I'll try my best.
Invite them to join us next development meeting. By which
Okay,
time we
I'll
should
do
have it. We should have it all. Have something more concrete. In the interest of time, shall we go to the next? Shall we move on? Actually, I skipped over. There's quite a few items on the agenda, aren't there? Would it be polite to bring Josh's item forward
That's
since he's a guest?
You, you can actually put it back to the bottom. I'm being pulled into something else, so I'm happy to wait.
Okay, all right. In that case, we'll talk about Mail's PR 452 on the website about the supported releases. Oh, is it Mail or Ashley? I can't remember. Mail.
It's Mail. Yeah, I think it's me. So may I share my screen for this one? It might be easier to show.
Yes, go ahead.
A window. Okay, almost done. Can you see something?
Now we can.
Okay, it's coming. Now,
Yeah.
does it work? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, you should be seeing my screen. Which one is it? Yeah, so supported release. So that's one thing that we are missing. The cert-manager project doesn't have a clear indication of what we're supporting, how long, and like when is going to be the next release, and what people can expect from us as a team, as a community regarding the timeline. So I went on and wrote a couple like this page, which I'm going to show right now. This is a work in progress thing, and it shows it's really similar as to what Istio does on their supported releases page. They have like the releases on. Sorry. Okay, so there are multiple things in this page. There is the support policy, which comes afterwards, and the support policy is what we can what we consider like what we want to be supporting. So we state what we mean by like how long we're supporting one single release, and when we're for example going to patch release and for how long. And I try to like categorize each type of like support thing. For example, a critical bug, which is rare, but we have examples. I wish someone could help me find out if these bugs are actually critical bugs. But I think one of those is the one of those is a Cloudflare bug that broke people at some point, I think. And so critical, and so in my mind, I wanted to really show people what they can expect from us regarding a critical bug. So is the previous release being patched? And here I say, yes, we do it as soon as possible. And I explained the same thing for the current release. So the previous release, for example, today is the 1.2.0. Sorry, the 1.1.0. Sorry, the 1.1 release. So that's the minor release that is supported, our previous minor release that is supported, and the current release, the 1.2 release. Yeah, so that's the support policy. If you can take a look and disagree with me, because like I just wrote what I had in mind. And to be honest, I didn't follow the Istio thing because like it's so different. We don't have the same thing. Istio doesn't have, they have many more people involved. It's different. But you can check out the Istio release notes in order to anyways. And then the most important thing for me is to show people which versions are coming. Any person in operations wants to know when they are going to have to plan to upgrade. Like, for example, they're running 1.0 and they really want to know when they, like, the last moment to upgrade, for example. And like, I wish, for example, we were able to say that in the 1.5 release, which is not even planned, we're going to drop the support for 1.20. And that's going to help them know, for example, that in 1 year time, they will have to plan to upgrade, like they need to upgrade. And it's just to give more visibility. Like right now, I'm giving a date, for example, here, the one that, there is the end of support for the 1.2 release is going to be in June. So that's one good thing. We're giving information to people like, please upgrade as soon as possible. If you're on the 1.2 release, in June, you will have to upgrade to some other version. I'm done. I'm done presenting.
I really like this page. I've been meaning to leave some comments on the PR, and I've got some open tabs where I found the support policy for Kubernetes, which I discovered recently they support a year's worth of releases now. And I found the support policy for Microsoft managed Kubernetes as well, which had some interesting information.
Do you mean this page, the deprecated API migration guide? The thing that Hervé or someone, I don't know, someone mentioned this really nice page.
Just the libraries. I think it's not it's deprecation.
No, I was looking at this blog post, which I'm looking to in the chat.
I'll stop presenting if that's okay.
I was just looking at these things because I was interested in the discussion about which versions of Kubernetes we commit to supporting, and I had some thoughts on that, which I'll try and write down in that PR. I was interested in it because of that the PR I was working on this week, which was to upgrade the CA injector to use V1 APIs, and I wasn't sure which versions of Kubernetes supported which of those V1 APIs. Turns out they're all supported right the way back to 1.16, so it wasn't a problem. All I'll say is that I will add some comments. Yes.
Thank you, Richard. Do you want to share your screen again?
You weren't sharing my screen.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
Maybe I should be. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, maybe yes. That would be nice for anyone looking at the recording.
Okay, let me try and do that. Sorry, it's Linux and Firefox. How's that? Can you see the screen?
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, so any further comments on Mail's supported releases pages? Or shall we just leave it that we will each go and comment on that PR?
Do we? Are we going to commit to a release schedule? I mean, a support time, or should we just think about it? Like match Kubernetes.
I think we do have, as far as I was aware, anyway. We have always had a support policy, at least for like being like the current release and the previous one. I don't know if we've now extended that out and need to revisit it, and that's what you mean. But
this all came up during the 1.2 release. I thought we had the policy written down, we kind of do, but it is what you said it was, but it's somewhere very obscure, as far as I remember. And that's why Mail started on this PR. And the other thing that changed was that we decided in the 1.2 release, I think it was the 1.2 release, when we backported the Helm upgrade fix, not just to the current release, but to the previous release, but one back, another release back. Is that, am I remembering correctly? Erba, you did that.
I recall. Yeah, something
At which point we started having this discussion. James, tell us. Sorry, James, tell us. Just tell us again. Then you're, as far as you're concerned, the policy is to support the current and the previous release only.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. That was, as far as I was aware, the policy. I think it might be worth us revisiting that. That's a long-standing policy back from the 0.x days. And now that we have moved forward, it may be that we want to change that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, a good opportunity to.
Sorry,
also,
I'm confused.
Just while James, while you've got it on in your mind, what about when you were more involved? What was your policy on which versions of Kubernetes we support? How did you decide upon that? How many periodic jobs and pre-submit jobs did you put in Prow for how many versions of Kubernetes?
Yeah, okay. So I can kind of answer your question there as well as Mail's. First of all, I was talking there about the cert-manager releases. We've typically only ever supported the current cert-manager release and the one before it, and that means bug fixes, security fixes, anything would only go into current and previous. And current here means like the next in development one, previous meaning the one that is currently the latest version. And that is just kind of, that's the way at least that we developed previously. I think the Kubernetes releases and which Kubernetes releases we support, we are entering what I'd say is like a turbulent time for API deprecations in Kubernetes. And previously we have tried to support as much as we can. There wasn't a strict number, like fixed minimum number, because we've never really got close to that. We've managed to support quite a wide range. I know that has now more changed. We are going to have to fall in line there with some of the Kubernetes policies. And I think we may find that at some point, the biggest range that we can support for a period, probably coming up anytime in the next few months, is going to be the 4 that Kubernetes allows. Because unless we're going to start having switches for like APIs, switching between 2 different API types, and that's not going to be trivial because we're using typed clients. And I also don't think it's necessarily worthwhile. That said, if we start saying there's a bit of a relationship between how many things we backport to and how many Kubernetes releases we support as well, because otherwise people could end out in a position where they're on a supported Kubernetes release according to Kubernetes policy, but they can't actually get security fixes and they can't upgrade cert-manager, which is a bad situation. So I think we do need to be careful there. That's really where it comes down to. So I think actually saying that we support it, like at any given time, we'll support at minimum the number of supported Kubernetes releases. Like the set of Kubernetes releases that are currently supported by the Kubernetes team, we should support at the time of release of like the 0.0 release. Or that minor release even, I should say. But yeah, there is a bit of a matrix expansion to do there, which I'm not going to try and do right now. And then, I'll add some comments as well to your PR, I think that's really, really, really great to get that written down and documented. yeah. And API deprecation, that's the other thing. I've had a few people ask me now, V1 Alpha 2 or 3 or Beta 1, or should I use V1? At some point, we should start talking about removing V1 Alpha 2 potentially, but let's not muddy the waters too much just now. We've got enough things to work out.
Yeah, thanks, James. I can't see anyone's faces while I'm sharing my screen, so I speak up if anyone has any further comments. Jake, were you about to suggest something?
I just want to thank you, James, for chiming in and helping with this.
Okay. Oh, Hervé, go on.
Sorry, I didn't want to. Yeah, I actually there was another thing that came up, I think, when we were talking about that on Thursday, which was about compatibility, and not having breaking changes. I think we kind of, whether that means just not breaking API, or do we also mean for the libraries to be to not remove public methods from package? I don't know if there's any policy on that, because it seems like we have different opinions on that.
So I would love for us to have Go API compatibility guarantees. I think realistically, where we are today doesn't allow it, and we've never tried extensively to maintain that, except for in a select few areas that are not clearly marked. So things like, off the top of my head, I think it's pkg/acme/webhook. Basically, if you're implementing an Acme DNS 01 webhook, I'd also say in the conformance test suite, especially at least the instantiation bits that we expect consumers to use. There was at one point a big talk about moving the majority of the code base into an internal subdirectory to kind of send a clear message. We do have pkg/internal for that reason. But I don't think there's been much of a drive behind it. I think as it stands today, I don't think we do have a Golang API compatibility guarantee there. It's been mostly focused around the API and the behavior of the API. So yeah, and behavior is a tricky, subtle one, right? Changing anything is technically a behavioral change. So I know the thing around intermediate CAs this morning is technically a breaking change of some description, and we kind of have to bend to the rules if we class something as a bug, or shouldn't have been that way in the first place. But these are really great questions to be asking, and tough ones to answer.
Okay, well, we've got 10 minutes left, so we may not get through everything, but let's see how far we get. The next item on the agenda is...
oh, just keep it. Sorry,
can we skip
this is just less for now. Yeah, you can keep it. It's not really interesting. It's just a public service announcement. I just wanted to... Okay, I'll talk about it for 1 second. I opened a PR. Okay, I'll go back here. Sorry. I opened the PR to the Kubernetes Slack community repository in order to have the GitHub application upgraded so that we can have this nice feature that they added in the last Slack app. But unfortunately, they cannot. So never mind. So we won't have this live notifications thing. And the Kubernetes Slack doesn't allow any other application anyways, so it's fine. Next item.
Okay, thanks, Mail. The next item is Hervé's effort to move the fork of crypto that we use from March's personal GitHub repo to a cert-manager organization repo. Over to you, March. Over to you, Hervé.
There I just quickly wanted to say, if we are we short of time? Like, I could also, I mean, this is quite a small thing. So if Josh wanted to talk about the spelling tool, maybe it's like better to use the time for that.
It's very good timing. I just finished helping a colleague with their item.
Okay.
So, suppose I could try sharing a screen. Can I?
Oh yes, I think so. Okay. Richard, you might want to stop presenting, maybe.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find a screen. This looks very much like a screen.
Perfect. We can see.
Okay. So I have no idea how big this looks because it's not actually showing to how it looks to you. Is this readable for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, the spell checker has some fancy little bits to it. And I actually wrote out a fairly long explanation of how I ended up doing things. 1 second. But one of the things you can do, it's not released yet, but which I actually used here, is you can actually ask the bot to do the updates for you. Obviously, you don't want to do this when you have typos still in your thing, because that will add in your typos as things that are okay. But the general idea is that, well, let's actually look at the history. So this was me trying to apply this was my current adventures going up, were me trying to use the spell checker. And so the first thing I did was I did a rebase, and I got an X. The spell checker didn't like me, and it gave me a comment. And it says, these are the misspellings it found. Now, some of them, like conditon, are misspelling. Some, like CR approver controller, will not be a misspelling eventually. And some of them, like auth-nv, are kind of on the fence. And for this one, I basically added a little rule saying that the V is actually part of a V and a number. And so the spell checker will filter out the V and number things, and then it will only see auth-n. And auth-n will add to the list of things we're okay with. And so that's sort of basically how I do it. So I added some features, and one of the things I got is it told me that it ignored some files automatically. Because it turns out, and actually for another spell thing I'm doing right now, I was looking at Lyra, which is this codec thing. And it found some audio files and some shared object files and some pictures. And it's like, well, these don't seem to be really very wordy. In the case of owners, it basically has brand names and things and not actually words. So the average number of words in its dictionary was lower than the number of things that were not in its dictionary. So it's like, even though it's not a picture, it still doesn't seem to be. And if you actually needed it to spell check, you basically have to add more words into the dictionary so that the balance is more words than non-words, and then it would complain about the non-words. And so then we apply those changes, and you'll see it's now a little happier.
How do you apply the changes? Sorry, I didn't follow here.
Sorry, I'm hiding it because there actually are commits behind here. So the excludes, I added the owners file, for instance, is here. So it's looking, this rule says if there's a thing at the beginning of the directory tree that's owners or that is in the directory that is called owners, then I'll skip that. And these are all things that I've collected for your repository. Amusingly, it actually has two different rules for licenses. This rule is going to have no impact because this rule up here is more gracious and will catch more things. And so, but it's an exclusion. It's called excludes. And then there's also expect, which is the list of the words that's expecting to see that it doesn't have it in its dictionary, but it's not going to complain about it if they're there. And then there are the patterns. So for instance, this one is a current PR to add a deprecation on usage content commitment with 2 T's. And I can't remove it probably until 1.4, maybe 1.5. But while it's there, I need to have it not complain about it. And I don't want people to add lots of things, but like I don't want it in expect. I want it to be explicitly saying, yeah, we know, and it's a thing, and this is why. And expect is a single word per line, whereas I can have a comment as long as it starts with a pound and a space. I can have a comment, and it will happily not treat this as a thing.
Josh, I think Eddie has got a question. Oh, he's got his hand raised.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. So, Josh, actually going back, yeah, I think there was a part where the GitHub action actually showed the report of the list of words that like were misspelled correctly. Actually, sorry, my is noisy, but actually I was going to ask if there's some sort of reference, like to know where exactly these words were misspelled.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hold on a moment. Let's go to, I think I want probably this one. So here's the comment, and that's probably on this commit, I think. Great. Well, it's one of these 3. Let's go with not this, because it doesn't look right. Nope. So eventually there's a log field which will actually spit them out. Okay, I'm going to cheat and use a different, give me a moment. I want Lyra. Sorry, this has a debug mode on, which is sometimes helpful. Maybe we'll just use a picture. Sorry. But yes, the short of answer is that you will get pictures that look like this, and you'll get log messages that look like this, where it says in this file, on this line, in specifically these columns, I didn't know this word. And it will actually do that for every single hit. The pretty version that you see here, you get the first 10. But the actual log version will give you all of them. Now, that's hopefully not going to be many, because like you're doing the single PR as opposed to the fancy whatever. But yeah, it will. You get, at the very least, you get, for the first 10, you get this. You get the list of the words here, and the logs should have all of them. Now, the all of them is mostly in a pre-release. The version that I currently have in the PR, the release version, will only give it for the commits that are in your recent changes. But I guess Mael has been trying to convince me to give the fancier version. So I think we'll actually give you a pre-release version. So you'll get all of the things as well as the ability to talk to the bot. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm sure time is fast spent, but actually one other thing, and it's just that James isn't here. I think James was talking about how the action would integrate with the prow builds. Since we use prow for builds, I think he was saying something on Slack. I would have to find the link, but he was talking about how GitHub Actions don't. Let me just find the link and post it. Give me a second.
Yeah, I didn't follow the link through, but my general understanding is that Prow is worried about when the head branch moves forward, and if the head branch moves forward, I think Prow is happy to sort of like trigger a rerun of things, and it can only do that for things it controls. The action, for the most part, as I responded in the thread, is mostly not going to run into problems, because when you trigger a change to the head, of the PR, which is as opposed to the head of the destination, which is called base in the PR terms, whenever you trigger a change to the head, the action will run and it does a merge against head as in the pull request target, and then it checks against that. Now, it will give you suggestions about things to do, and if you accept them, it will be adding them to your head, the branch for the pull request. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you have temporarily removed something from expect, because there was a word that in some other branch that there was one instance in head, and somebody added a second instance, and in your PR you remove the only instance, and then the bot says, well, there's no instances left, I want you to remove it from expect. Okay, so you've removed from expect, it's no longer there, and you merge, but the other guy has already merged first, so now there were 2, it goes from 2 down to 1, and now expect no longer has the file, or no longer has the word, and then the bot will scream and say, I can't see this anymore. Okay, well, it's not a big deal. You add in the thing back into expect, and you move on with life. Or if you decide that this is a word that's going to come and go, you add into allow, and then you never worry about it again. So you can see in this picture here, this section here, the reviewers exclamation mark, this came from a specific repository. They added this text, or well, I did it with them, but you can put whatever you like. So if you want to stick in text here that mentions prow or how you want people to do things, or if you want to tell them if it's something's like a dictionary thing, you should go into one of the allow files instead of having it go into expect, you can stick that here. There's a file called advice.txt, and you just put GitHub Markdown into this file, and it's whatever. So it should cover that case reasonably well.
Thanks, Josh. Just before we continue, if anyone has to go, we're running 5 minutes over, so feel free to drop out and go and take a look at Josh's PR if you're interested, and leave your comments there. But I'm happy to continue. If there are any other questions, we can continue for another 5-10 minutes. So are there any other remarks or questions about what we've seen?
Well, one quick question. Why do comments disappear? Like they appear hidden at some point? Is it the bot, or is it?
Yeah. So well, there are 2 ways it can happen. Well, there are 3. If you do a rebase and a comment was on the commit itself, and the commit is no longer in the branch, then the comment that was on the commit will disappear because it's no longer in the pull request. So that's one way the thing can totally disappear. Then if you are the owner of the repository, or the owner of the, well, maybe only the owner of the repository, maybe the owner of the PR, you can try and hide a comment. So I can click on this and choose hide. And then I can give it a reason. I can say it's out of date or off topic or whatever, or it's a duplicate. The last reason is that the bot itself, so yeah. In this specific thing, all right, you kind of need to see both. The instructions at the bottom say, quote this line to have the spell checking bot apply the changes. So what I did was I clicked the line, I went here, I clicked quote reply, that gave me this line, and I clicked comment. And that gave me this line. When I clicked comment, the bot responded by creating this commit, and having successfully created and pushed this commit, it then collapsed these 2 things because they're done. You no longer need to see them. It has addressed them with this happy little commit, which you can actually see. What it has done is it said, well, Acme V is no longer a thing because, as I said, the Vs are now being excluded. And similarly, well, these are also the Vs. This is a new thing that we've magically said it's a word now, or this one is now a word for the same sense. And basically it is integrated to the suggestions that it had here. All of these things it has added to expect, and all of these things it's removed.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Actually, Prow has a similar feature. It just removes the comment it created when, for example, you rerun a test or like when it is asking for a DCO or something. Whenever the person actually manages to fix the issue, it is going to remove the comment so that it doesn't clutter the PR, which is useful.
Yeah. So this feature is something that I've only started using, and unfortunately, I can't release it until it works for private repositories. My company is mostly built around private repositories, or my employer's company. And unfortunately, the APIs don't work there. So I need to restructure how it actually does the backend storage for this data. But once I've done that, I will be able to ship this in a release, and then it'll just be generally available instead of hidden behind a flag as it currently is. I'm currently using hide because the Microsoft teams seem to use hide when they're done with things. Especially since I'm not very comfortable with deletes, and I'm not really sure, I don't know that I would use deletes, but I would certainly be willing to experiment with it with a team that's happy with experimentation, which it sounds like you folks would be. But
yeah, maybe it's a different context because here, like,
I just find
often, yeah.
I always found delete weird because it just goes, and then it doesn't, because obviously it only deletes its own comments, so you still have the comments with people's commands in just floating there. Like
with
hiding
no context.
hiding both is better than deleting the bot's context, in my opinion.
Okay, good. Thank you. It's good to get feedback about my design choices because they're just personal choices, and I without feedback, I have no idea if I picked reasonable ones. Now, actually, you might not be able to see it, but the bot actually does. It makes a comment and then it immediately edits its own comments, because what it's doing in this line here is that it's a self-reference. This is a link to its own comment, but it doesn't know the URL for its comment until it's been made. So it has to post the comment, get the URL to the comment, and then immediately edit the comment to fill itself in, which is how this magic works, that you can quote the thing, which is now self-referencing. It works. Well, except for, again, private repositories where it doesn't. And it only works for pull requests. So you'll note that I have often two comments that look nearly identical, but while it could do the comment and include that change, there is no comment handler on random commits. There's only a comment handler available from GitHub for PRs. And therefore, I'm stuck. So while these two comments look very similar, this line will only appear on the one that's actually owned by the PR as opposed to the one that's owned by the commit itself.
Oh, okay.
And again, the reason for the two things is that I want to encourage people to locally, in their own repository, make a push, get feedback from the bot, fix it before they make a PR, so that nobody else sees their embarrassing typos. Now, you're welcome to show your typos to the world, but
Mail. Just let me say I am going to have to go in 4 minutes, so keep it snappy.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Go
Just
ahead.
wanted to ask, is there a way to run that locally?
So there is a thing called Nectos Act, ACT.
Yes.
And I think I might have
Also, it's running the GitHub action locally.
Yeah, unfortunately, it has. I'm slowly bleeding into new features that it doesn't have yet, but I'm slowly adding the features into Nectos to make sure it works because, yes, I want to be able to use it. So it would be possible eventually to maybe have Prow run it using Nectos instead of actually having GitHub do it. But it won't be a tier 1 thing. It might be a tier 2 as opposed to tier 3 feature, because the majority of my users are going to be using GitHub Actions. But obviously I do want Act to work. Like I want my colleagues at work to be able to use Act so that they don't even have, because we pay for our resources in the cloud. So yes, I do want it to work, but right now it's not working particularly well. And some of these things, like the comments, clearly, if it won't be able to do that. So some of the things I've been doing this week will have to be added. The ability to basically turn off commenting, the ability to say, I want those as file outputs. But yeah, I hope it will work. The features that I'm showing here should be released within a month or two, I hope, although I've been working on them for literally a year. But Act working to do these things is probably another couple months out past that. Possibly sooner if I'm working with you faster to make it work that way.
Okay, so let's encourage you somehow. And thank you so much for chiming in, like coming and proposing. At the very beginning, to be honest, the team was a bit like, let's say, worried, because we didn't know where these like grammar and spelling comments, the comments you left at the very beginning, we didn't know where they were coming from. And so, but I'm so glad that you are coming here today and presenting your project. It's really nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. See you on Slack.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I guess we're done with today's.
Yes, I think so. We have some items left to discuss, but we can talk about them in the stand-up tomorrow and in next development meeting.
Exactly.
So
perfect. I guess you can stop recording now.
I shall stop recording.